Okay, so now we're on to video 2 of threading. So if you didn't see video 1 where we talked about threading the upper half, now please go back and watch that. So just back up to our channel and click on step 1. So this is step 2 of threading your serger, and at this point we're going to be dealing with the part that people are most terrified of, and that's the loopers. So we're going to I've got 3 machines next to me here to show you 3 different ways that the loopers get threaded, and there's one point in the looper in particular, one point in the lower looper where we all stumble. And so we're going to have patience with me, I'm going to have patience with you, we're going to have patience with ourselves, because that is the trick to these machines. And now this is why people teach the tie-off method, which is where you take your, let's say you're switching your threader from white to black. So you take your white thread that is going to the loopers, and once you get past the tension disc, you snip it off, tie the black thread on, and then you carefully pull the white thread. And the reason we do this, or the reason people talk about doing this, is A, it can be much faster for threading your serger. You just have to watch that the thread doesn't break en route. And 2, the other reason people teach it is because of that little point on the bottom looper that we're all gonna like get frustrated with once in a while. If you have an air threaded serger, this is the reason why you have an air threaded serger. So if you have an air threaded serger, you're bringing your threads down from the tension discs, poking them in the little holes, switching the switch to whichever looper you're doing, pumping the air through. The air shoots the thread out the other end, poke the other thread in, point the lever to the other thread, the other looper, hit your lever, psh, it shoots out. That's the dream. And some of you may not even know you have this feature on your serger. So for a long time, it was only Baby Lock that had air threaded sergers, but we now have them on FAF and Husqvarna Viking, and I anticipate that everybody else is going to get them soon. The patent for the Baby Lock held has actually run out. So now other sergers have threads. Oh my gosh, other sergers have air threaders. It's a lot. And an air threaded serger is a gift. So if you're watching this and you're buying a machine for somebody that you love so much, or if you are hoping to put something on your wish list and you don't own a serger, the air threaded serger is worth every stinking penny. So if you want to buy a new serger and you have room in your budget for an air threaded serger, go for it. There is, in the month of April 2021, there is a new air threaded serger convertible cover lock that's been introduced to the market. It's shipping in a few months and it's delicious. But for those of us who have mechanical sergers without the air threading, this video is for us. So again, I'm going to be referring first to the Husqvarna Viking 250S, the H-Class 250S. It's the serger that I teach with most often because I call it butterfly it, so that you can see everything that's happening, and it's a nice way to teach. So we're going to start with that. You'll see I have lots of tools to my side here, and when we get into the zoomed in video, you're going to see tools in the background. Don't find that terrifying. It's just I want to be able to have them as references when I'm talking to people. So this is the serger. So I'm going to switch to the other screen, and when you go to this other screen, there is a zoom in on the gears and mechanisms. So don't be alarmed and don't be afraid. It's not worth being afraid of. So here we go. Okay, so this is our serger. I'm going to grab a pointer. So this is where the thread, off screen, this is where the threads are coming off of the tension disc from above, and then they come down into this area, and there's a hook on either side and a handy dandy little map. Now the map is thread colored to help us guide us through the way, and generally when you do open up a serger, you will find that there's little dots like these dots right here. I don't know if you can see that blue one, but here's a green one that you can see quite well, and those help guide you through threading your serger. So I'm going to snip off my threads. I'm snipping all of them across the top, and then I got a little bit of a tangle there. I'm going to pull the threads forward. We always pull our threads forward through any machine. My presser foot is up so that I can pull the threads nicely, and everybody can squeal in terror as the machine lets loose all of its threads. Now there is a sweet spot in threading where you can slide the threads right out where they aren't caught on each other, and that was me pulling all the threads through the serger. So I am going to put that little pile of threads somewhere innocuous. There we go. So we've got an empty serger at this point. So you can just see my hands in there. This machine is beautiful in that it opens like this, so we can get in a little further. And this is the scary part of the serger right here, is that little looper. I'm going to back off just a little bit so that we can all see just a little bit more of what's going on in this serger. I'm going to reclose this because none of you will be seeing any more than this part of the machine at this point. So I'm going to take my blue thread in this case, which is my lower looper. I'm going to quickly just run it through the tension disc at the top, bring it down into the channel, and I'm going to catch it in its first little hook. From there, the machine is going to create its slack that it needs to create that horizontal loop. And so I'm going to put it through this bottom looper over here. There's a nice little blue dot to guide me through threading the serger. Now your serger is going to have that same transition. There may be a point right here where it clips in and then goes down. And then at this point there may be a second hook. And what the point of this is, if you watch, as the serger's rolling, it's creating slack. So it's creating what's needed to create the loop on the bottom. Okay. So from here then, my needles are in their highest position. I'm going to clip onto the lower looper post. This is the point at which the lower looper is attached to the swing arm. Okay, I don't know if it's actually called a swing arm. That's what I call it because it moves. So I'm calling it a swing arm. So then once you've got that hooked in there like dental work, okay, so it hooks right into that little bottom piece right in there, just like flossing your teeth. You're then going to try and get that piece to the end of, get it in, there we go, to the end of the looper. And the end of the looper is right here. So if I'm going to keep my fingers out of the way, but I'm going to rotate the machine so you can see that lower looper. Do you see it here? Here, see it swinging through? So that's the lower looper, and there is a hook on the end of that lower looper. And so in this serger, I then have to then just hook it into there, and on this machine it's from the bottom. Hook it into place so it's caught where it should be. Double check that my thread is not, like this one, hasn't fallen out of that. And so now I've made it all the way to the end of the looper, and I'm then going to come back in here and I'm going to thread through the eye of the looper. And for this step, just because I like to be able to see what I'm doing, when I have my glasses on, which I happen to do today, which is super brilliant of me, and then with my task light nicely pointing at the area, I'm going to then put my thread through the eye of the looper, just like, I'm going to focus and stick my tongue out, there we go, and I can poke it through, and I've got a hold of it in the other end. And that's how you thread your lower looper. Now, next question is, what do I do with the thread now that I've got it in my hand? So some people will say, oh, bring it forward and lay it down, but that's not the best way to do it. So what we want to do is we want to get it into the engagement area. And so the first thing I do when I'm threading a serger is I pop the presser foot off so that I can see everything. So on this machine, can we see it on this machine? We can. At the back of the foot, so remember, my presser foot is lifted. At the back of the presser foot, I can hit a little trigger and the foot comes off. Some machines you have to actually unscrew things. Most machines have a little clip. This machine that's over at this side has a little clip on the side. This machine here has a little clip on the side. This machine has a clip on the back. So they're all little clips, okay? And that is going to be the best way to get your foot off. Don't lose your foot. So you just take your foot and put it where you can see it, but now you can see this whole area. So if I zoom in here again, I've got my whole presser foot area available for me to see, and there's nothing in the way, and I can see where I'm going, and I'm much happier for all of it. So I'm just going to take my thread, I'm going to bring it right across and out through the feed dogs. So I'm just making sure it's not tangled on anything, and I can see when I opened up things here, when I took the foot off, a couple little strands of thread fell out. So there we go, little scraps of fabric. Otherwise it's very clean. So there's my thread path for the lower looper, through its connection into the bottom of the machine, connect it through the hook right down here, and they will become, the threads do pop out of their hooks from time to time, so that one's when everything's loose and loosey-goosey and not winding. And then from this hook at the end of that looper over to this eye, and then back out through above my feed dogs, and they'll end up below my foot right there. So that's the next that looper. So then the second looper, which is the upper looper, is much easier, and it's got a little tricky step in it I'm going to talk about. So here I am, I've got my thread coming down out of my tension channel. I come down again, it's hooking first into the engagement and then into this slack arm. When it comes up, I make up all my words, just so you know. And so then I've got a nice little hook right here, and that's to guide it through the process. There's also a nice little eye here. So mine has a spiral, so I can go right through the end. And now the next step, very simple, is just to thread the eye. I'm going to trim off my thread because I seem to have a nice little bit of fuzz there. So I've trimmed off my thread. I grab it with my tweezers and I thread it through the eye of the upper looper. And if I had 2 tweezers, I would use 2 just so you could see everything, but I only have 1. Pull it up, make sure that my thread's following its proper path. And in this particular case, I just want it to be, I want the thread to stay in behind the loopers, going through from the front to the back of this one. And you're going to follow your user's guide for this. But now I have both lower loopers threaded. Now, you're going to say, what was that tricky bit you mentioned, Heather? So, the tricky bit is some machines have I'm not going to use a technical term on this one because it's slipping my mind, but I'm going to say there's a little clip, and I'll show you what the clip looks like. There's this nice clip that pops into the machine, and the point of that little pokey bit at the end, there, you can see it quite well there. That little pokey bit at the end actually pokes through the eye of the upper looper. So you just need to make sure that your looper is actually open when you go to thread it. And so if this was in place, it would be through the eye of the looper and I wouldn't be able to thread it. I'll go swing to the other camera so you can see it. That's where that sits. And so your machine, if it has this little swing arm plugging the hole of your looper, that's from 2-thread serging. So you don't need that. You're going to take it off and then you can finish it. That's the tricky bit. That's the only tricky bit with that upper looper. Lower looper, it's the end of that. So now you're going to say, what is it? What do I do with my machine? So now I'm going to put my foot back on this machine just so I know where it is at all times, because you know we all have those sewing rooms where we have to search for things from time to time. And I don't want to do it live on video because nobody needs to know that about me. I'm going to close my door. When I close my door, I like to lift my foot, push this out of the way. Okay, so I want to show you this serger. So I'm going to move my camera over like this. I'm going to go like this, and I'm going to zoom in. So let's talk about where that hook on the end of the looper is on these older machines. So let's see, I can go like this. All right, so there you can see the foot. You can see that we're looking at the serger from the side, and this machine's cover swings open. So now I'm looking at the side of the machine. I've already threaded the front, but I need to thread the end of my looper. And the end of the looper on this machine, which I think you can see moving if I do this. So there it goes out of the way. I'm going to keep continuing through because we only like to turn our wheel in the right direction. Go through again because I didn't stop at the right point. Right now, my lower looper is poking its nose out right here. So what I would need to do, and this is why we like to do the thread draw method, but you should know how to thread your serger. So what we like to do at this point is we like to pass our thread from the top of the looper arm through the machine like this. This particular one has a guide right down here, so I'm going to put my thread through the hole that's right there, and I think you can see that. Yeah. So you're going to pass it through that hole, then you grab the thread here and you poke it back through the hole there, and then you're going to pull it out the other side. So then that thread is going to be coming out, and that's when you put it through the eye of your looper. So that is on that method of machine. And it would be much easier to draw the thread, definitely easier to draw the thread than it would be to work its way through. So that's why we learn to draw our thread. But you should know what's happening down there, because I have had plenty of stories from people who said, well, I used to serge a lot, but then my thread broke and I haven't been able to use it since. So that's that lesson. Now, so you're going to want to mark this and go back in the video to learn about that. If you've got that type of machine, make sure you know how to thread that lower looper's end hook. If you don't thread that end hook, it will not form a proper loop, and so your serging will always look kind of ratty. So it's an important step. Now we're going to change the camera again. Let's see if I've remembered what I'm supposed to do at what point. So now I am at one of the next generation sergers. This is not an air threaded serger, but I want to show you this serger. I'm going to zoom in nice and tight. So I'm off screen right now as I'm working on getting my zoom in the right position. So I'm going to zoom in nice and tight. See how close I can get here. I think that's pretty good. I'm going to bring that through there. And then I'm going to come in even tighter. I think I want you guys to be able to see so much detail on this. So excuse me while I do this because I want to get it right. Switch to this. I'm trying different depths of things to get the camera exactly the right angle. All right, I think I'm good there. It's very, very tight on the camera here, guys. So, all right, so this is next generation serger. This is the Hobbylock 2.5, and right over in here we have a very special little arm. So you can see that moving right there. So what happens is you bring your thread through its hook up to the hook on the lower looper, then you thread your looper. So you go from here to the looper. Then the next step is to swing this arm, and it will catch the thread and it carries it to the back of that looper, puts it in place, and everything's threaded properly for that lower looper. That's the trick with that lower looper. And while we're here, I'll just bring you up one little bit more step so you can see just a little bit more of that. So I'm going to back off just a little bit. Remember I was talking about you might have this arm attached to your machine? That is attached. So either you can click it into place like that, or you can swing it out. It's not dramatic, but there you go. There's your upper looper converter. So there's that. Okay, so that is threading the lower looper, the upper looper. Scariest part of your serger, as long as we don't consider that moving blade terrifying, but you know, tell your kids the moving blade is terrifying. You're going to take it into the machine, follow the path as directed. If you have an older generation serger, you're going to get the thread through that obnoxious little hole at the end of the lower looper and bring it forward, and then do upper looper. And again, in both cases, your thread is coming off of the looper hole and out under the foot. And in my case, because that's how I prefer to, for every part of threading, I prefer to not have the foot on the machine, so I pop it off so I can see everything. All right, so we have one more video on threading, and that's going to be threading the top, and we're going to talk about techniques and tips and tools and awesomeness for threading those 2 needles that are right in the tiniest little place that you can put 2 needles. All right, so we'll see you in our next video. And again, I always end with have a good day because that's just how I feel we should all end our days. But we've got one more video to go.